Hello and welcome along to the Cheese Room. I am your host again tonight to chat all things Spurs. And once again, I've got a great panel with me. James, first of all, had a good week. What do you think about, it's been hot here in Chester. What do you like with heat? Do you like the heat?
Yes, if I don't have to do anything, no. As Cooler will know, not the biggest fan of hot weather, I'm going to be honest.
You don't strike me as someone who spends quite a lot of time in the sun, if I'm honest.
No, I certainly hope not. But thanks for having me on. Lovely to be on as ever.
Good stuff. And Matt, welcome back again as well. How's your week been? You work outside, don't you? So you spend a lot of time outside.
Yeah, I work outside quite a lot. I love the heat. I prefer to be around a pool or by a beach in it, but yeah, I'm used to it. I like the sun. I don't like the rain. So, but yeah, thanks for having me back on. Hat-trick appearance today. So, thoroughly looking forward to getting in, talking about all things Spurs. So, getting ready to get into it.
Good stuff. And also welcome back after her brilliant debut, Brooke. Hello, Brooke. How are you? Is this hot here, or are you used to kind of hotter weather over in the US when you lived there?
It was so pleasant today. I loved it. It was great. No, I've lived in some deserts, so I have no issue with the weather here.
We just seem to kind of have it warm for a few days and then moan about it and then complain when it's raining. And that's like I'm with Matt. I like the heat. I've spent the entire day inside today. I have not been outside once. So yeah.
I'm on the bandwagon about weather. I'm there with you. I do it too.
Right. You've just come back from Paris as well, haven't you? Weren't you in Paris at the beginning of the week?
Yeah, it's just work. You get on the metro, get on the train, metro, go to your meetings. There's nothing fun or interesting about it.
Great stuff. Still jealous, even if it's work. Okay, right. So let's get on with the show. Enough about the weather. So the usual housekeeping bits, if you can sign in for us and hit the like, that would be brilliant. And hit subscribe as well. Welcome and hello to everybody in the chat. I can see a few familiar faces already. You're very welcome. Tonight we're going to be chatting transfers, rumoured transfers, a few bits and pieces have kind of dropped today that maybe sorted a few things out. And I've got James very kindly sorting the chat out for me. That'd be fantastic. So we'll start with Rafinha, I think. His name keeps kind of popping up. I've seen lots of kind of ideas about Richarlison or Rafinha and where are we going? Is it going to be Rafinha? And Rafinha seems to be kind of heading up a bit of steam, that's saying that Leeds have now contacted Spurs to say they are going to put a bid in and then make an offer, which seems a bit strange because if they'd want to do it, they would just get on with it, but that's okay. Is this a good move for us? What do we think about this? Matt, if I go to you first.
Well, yeah, I think Rafinha's a good player, isn't he? I think if he adds to the squad, he'll make our squad better than it is. Obviously, with Bergwijn possibly going, I think it's a good replacement. I think he can probably play out wide and maybe he could feel like a number 10 role as well because he looks like he's good on the ball. He's obviously, even if he's not in the starting lineup and he's on the bench, I think he'd be an excellent impact player. Gets at people, he's fast, he takes them on, and he looks like he's got a decent end product as well. So, be a good move. But the figures they're talking are sort of like, I think Leeds have said that they're not going to accept anything under about 65 million, which is quite a lot of money for us to part with for someone who's going to be a squad player. I mean, a really good squad player, but I suppose that's where we're shopping at the minute, isn't it? That's what we're trying to do, and prices seem quite high. I think there'll be quite a few going for his signature, though. I think Arsenal have sort of like made an actual bid and been knocked back. And I think it was Romano saying that we've told Leeds that we'd like to bid, which is nice. And I think he said Chelsea are interested as well. So we'll see where it goes. We got to bring someone in, and his name keeps cropping up. So it sounds like there is a bit of interest there. How serious it is, I don't know, but be a good one. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind him coming in.
Yeah, see, Jordan's put in there that he could play in all roles. Brooke, I'll come to you. Is this tricky one for Kulu though? Is he not going to be? Would he not be playing in the right position for Kulu? And Kulu's had such a fantastic start since January. That's why it seems to me it's a sort of strange one.
Yeah, that's what makes it strange. I mean, unless he wants Kulu to drop back and just be a wing back. I don't know how it's going. I don't know how it's going to work. He does improve us, and he has a proven Premier teamwork, attitude, personality compared to Richarlison. So I think he's known quantities in a lot of good ways. But I do find it odd. So there must be some master plan I'm unaware. I don't know.
Yeah, and also, I possibly does it. I know Mora has come out today and say that he's almost certainly going to run his contract down at Spurs and then move back to Brazil, and that's great. But if we have another person up front, where does Mora kind of fit into all of that? James, what do you think about that?
Brilliant comment here, who emphasises my point beautifully, so thank you. Yeah, it's rotation. We can have a lot of games next season. Conte's going to want to go far in both domestic cups. We haven't played in the Champions League since Pochettino, and Pochettino kind of binned those cups off quite a lot, right? So it's useful to have lots of players. Yeah, maybe Mora only plays 10, 15 games next season, and they're against like Doncaster away, right? And he comes on as a sub. He's not a bad option off the bench. He's quite quick, right? I don't think he's a very good starter, but I mean, Bergwijn looks like he's heading out the door, so we need to get someone in to replace him, someone better. I've seen Barcelona sniffing around Rafinha, and so they're probably a more attractive offering than we are in some ways. But yeah, I don't know. I think he'd be good, but I think 65 million is too steep.
Yeah.
Also, it's weird timing. We have priorities, things that we actually need, and so I don't know. Odd.
He's not better than Kulusevski, though, is he? Kulusevski's quality. I mean, it's just like Jane said in the comment was there. It's about rotation and having good rotation. We need, like, when we're bringing a player in, we need him to be as effective, nearly as good, or better than the player he's replacing. Because, like, we're going to have lots of games, and Mora will get his games. But we got a World Cup coming. We don't know how fit all these players are going to be all season, and we need to be fighting on all fronts. So, it's not. I don't think it's about replacing Kulusevski. I think it's about competition.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to be Richarlison and Rafinha. You wouldn't assume that it would be both. It was going to be either or, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And like I said, we've said before that then it may be just a squeeze. There might be somebody else that's kind of completely we're not aware of. But I think it's good that we still seem to be looking at forward options. We'll talk about possible outgoings a bit later on. Brooke, we did this off air, didn't we? People are still saying your mic's a bit muffled. Are you able to turn yourself up a bit more? Maybe sit a bit closer. Can you sit a bit closer to your device? Does that help? We did try this off air before we started. Yeah, lean in a bit. Okay, right. So let's go to the seem to be favoured position that we seem to talk about all the time, left centre back. When we talked about Bremer last week, we were sort of feeling that it was possibly out and it wasn't going to happen, possibly with him wanting to stay in Italy. And his name still keeps cropping up. I read this week that he said that he's got lots of offers on the table and he's kind of taking time to decide which offer to accept. Matt, what do we think about Bremer?
Well, from what I've seen and read, I don't think he's a genuine left-sided centre back. He could I don't know if he could probably play there. People who have seen him more than me would probably know more about that. But I mean, he'd definitely be a good option. I think more maybe competing with Romero and Dyer. He seems quite aggressive, like Romero, obviously. And if you're classed as the best defender in Italy, then mug. So he's a decent player, but I don't know if he's going to. If we got him, I don't think he'd necessarily be that left centre back cover. And I'm not sure about him. I don't think he's going to come to England. I think he'll stay in in Italy. I think this is just one of those, we've been linked with him for a long time, and whilst we're sort of like trying to fill that role, I think we'll just continue to be linked with him. But from what I've seen, he's quick, he gets in the box and he's nicked a couple of goals, and he looks aggressive, and he looks to get in there before the attacker. So I think he's sort of everything that probably Conte would want in a defender, but I'm just not sure. I think it's just a player we've been linked to, and it's just going to keep going over and over. But if we got him and another centre half, that'd be great. I mean, he'd be, like I said, it'd be ideal competition. And I don't think the figures that they're touting for him are that big, are they? I think they're talking around sort of like 35 million, are they? 40 million?
Yeah,
so
less than that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and with some outgoings and with a bit of money we got to spend, good addition if we can get him. Like most of the players we're being linked with, decent additions. If they improve the squad, that's what we need to be doing. So,
yeah, Brooke, do you agree with that?
I do. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out my head. One of them is not working, and I think that's why I'm quiet.
We can hear you.
Oh.
It's just a bit distant.
Sorry.
Matt, what do you think? James, anything more to add while Brick sorts out headphones?
Yeah, I mean,
regarding Bremer?
In terms of the likelihood of it happening, I don't know, because I'm not an agent. I'm never very good at that. Just for like pure numbers in comparison to Ben Davies, Bremer completes 16 pressures a game compared to Davies 9. He has 1.59 tackles per 90 versus Davies 1.4. But this is where the numbers get really impressive. 3.64 interceptions versus 1.6. 2.68 blocks compared to 1.38. 6.2 clearances versus 3.3. 4-point aerial duels run 1 versus 2.73. Bremer is like superior in almost every defensive category, and I say this as someone who loves Ben Davies. The only thing Ben Davies is better at is, weirdly, progressive carries. Ben Davies completes 6 progressive carries a game. That's like really high. That's like almost Musa Dembele numbers, which is weird for a centre back. But yeah, if he comes in, he'll be brilliant for us, I'm sure. He'll be like another Romero. And again, good to have rotational options, because these guys can't play like 60 games a season. There's a World Cup in the middle of the season. We need to be able to, rotate, sort of thing.
Injuries.
So, exactly. I mean, what if Romero or Davies or one of these guys gets injured? We need someone who can come in. So it's not a question.
Can you see him playing on the left, James? Because you've done a bit more sort of like scouting. You've probably got a bit more knowledge about him than me. Could you see him playing as a left-sided centre back, or do you think he'd be more of a central or a right-sided?
Well, I don't think he's a specifically left-sided centre back, although I think he could definitely play there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a lot more aggressive, and he tries to get forward a lot more, much like Davies does. I'm not sure how strong his left foot is, to be honest. But, it's something that could be coached, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, if he's a good footballer, he can pass. He'll probably be able to use both feet. Obviously, one better than the other. But I mean, I'm just looking at, like, it looks, doesn't it, that we want a left-sided centre half with a left foot. And if he comes in, like you said, all those stats are better. I mean, Ben Davies was fantastic last year. So if he comes in and is better than Ben Davies, then fantastic.
Yeah, and we're all being reliably informed that it is pronounced Davis. As I said, those of you who saw on Twitter earlier in the week, Davis with an IES is my maiden name. So it is pronounced Davis. But yeah, so the one name that keeps getting mentioned is Ndika. A few people have put that in the comments. It's almost like you kind of preempted us, because that was the next person to mention on our run sheet. This is a person that HG is very keen on. So he's seen him a few times because he plays for Eintracht Frankfurt. He's French, and his offers are supposed to be around sort of 20 million as well. And we mentioned that last week and on Monday's show that he is sort of near the end of his contract, which is making him quite popular in the kind of purchasing sort of sense. Brooke, do you know anything about Ndika?
Well, I watched the YouTube reel, which was excellent. Now, I agree for the right price. Yeah, I think yes. I think it's a no-brainer. But I think he's got interest from elsewhere that could possibly drive the price up. And I think if it becomes a bidding war and it gets a little expensive, then I'm not particularly.
James, anything else to add about Ndika? I must admit, I don't know much about him, so I'm not much help here.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, defensively wise, he is an improvement on Davies. He completes more pressures a game. He completes 12 pressures a game, 2 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2.45 blocks, 5 clearances. Decent in the air for aerial duels, 1 a game. In a Frankfurt side that's pretty heavy on pressing, right? And who haven't been brilliant this season. He seems like an inferior option in many ways to Bremer, but we have to remember that Bremer is 25 and Ndika's 22. So he's going to improve, right, with time. I think they'll both be pretty good options, right? Maybe he's not a world beater right now, but he's definitely better, right? On a player that, you know, Davies, I don't care, who is playing pretty well, right? And if his underlying numbers are better, with better coaching and a better system around him, surely those numbers would improve and he could play better. If it takes him a few months to bed in and fully become the player that he can be, or a while, then that's okay, because his numbers are still quite good. So again, either or would be perfectly good for us, I think.
Yeah, he has a lot of experience for being as young as he is.
Yeah, totally. Matt, agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember I've been following Cheese Room for quite a while, and I've been in the Patreon since it was set up. So I think I'm sure HD talked about him a while ago, and obviously he's not the type of bloke that's just going to sort of like pick a name out the air. He's obviously watched him play, and he thinks he's a decent player, and he's seemed pretty decent. And he's a pretty decent judge of a player. So I've seen bits of him, obviously in the Europa League, and I've done the old YouTube scouting, like, you know, on him, and he looks quite proactive. Obviously, what I've seen, the stats James put out there sort of back it up. But he's left-footed and he's young as well. And I totally agree with James. You know, we've got a top coach here, and we've got good players. You know, and I think all that mixed in, if he can come in right attitude, he can be an asset to us. I mean, like I said, like I keep saying, we're looking at players to improve this squad. So if he's one of those, let's get him in. If he's in, I think we'll look at players with not very long on their contract. I think that's the sort of deals that Spurs will be looking for. So it could be one that, you know, we get in. It'd be great if he improves the squad, let's get him in. Let's see what he can do.
I think it's what we're saying, isn't it? Anybody that's kind of, you know, it seems to be players in Europe that are sort of prepared to pay sort of left centre back or be a centre back that have a left foot. They all do seem to get kind of mentioned, don't they? Pau Torres there in the comment, that gets mentioned quite a lot. We've talked about him quite a lot before.
Can I say something about Pau Torres?
Yeah,
his defensive numbers are horrible. Like, he's actually worse statistically than Davies in terms of defensive numbers. He doesn't even complete a tackle a game, whereas Davies completes nearly 1.5. He completes less interceptions than Davies.
What's his heading stats like? Because I've seen that he's not very good. You know, and if you're playing centre half in the Premier League, you need to sort of be pretty decent in the air.
He wins 2.1 aerial duels a 90, whereas Davies completes 2.7. So he's worse in the air than Davies. Now, of course, some of that's because Conte's system, as my dad pointed out in the chat, some of it's due to Conte's system. But, you know, if you're good at heading the ball, you're good at heading the ball. It doesn't matter who the manager is, right? Unless, I don't know, Steve Bruce is your manager or something. Sam Allardyce is your manager. It doesn't make that much of a difference how many aerial duels you're winning. So I don't think Pau Torres is very good.
He strikes me as if he could get a little bit bullied if he came into the Premier League. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I'm just saying from what I've seen. I'm not saying he's not a very good player, but he doesn't strike me as a sort of like a robust centre half who can also bring the ball out and you can mix it up a bit. He just seems a little bit sort of like timid's the wrong word really, but he seems a little bit sort of, I don't know a nice way to put it, but like he looks a little bit weak.
Yeah, I know. I saw him in kind of was it the Champions League game against Liverpool, and he didn't really stand out for me. I didn't even really notice who he was. So I think, you know, in that kind of stage against such a good side as Liverpool, it kind of shows what he's going to be like at the tempo and whether he is going to be able to kind of keep up with it. He keeps getting mentioned as well, doesn't he, because of the link with Lo Celso, and it kind of maybe some sort of deals and, you know, linked to that. And that's why he keeps getting mentioned, doesn't he? Yeah. Another one that keeps getting mentioned who's left-footed is Hincapie. We talked briefly about him on Monday, the Bayer Leverkusen player. Again, sort of in that kind of 30, 35 million kind of sort of amount. If we've got good form with Leverkusen, because that's where Sonny came from. Again, this is somebody I know very little about. I had to Google kind of how to pronounce his name. Brooke, do we know anything about Hincapie?
I don't. I really don't. I've seen him linked with us, and I watched the YouTube videos. And like all the YouTube videos look good, so I don't really know much about him.
He's Ecuadorian, isn't he? I found that bit out.
20
Matt
years
James?
old, isn't he?
Is he that? So he's young as well. Okay.
I've not seen a lot of him. I don't watch a lot of German football, but obviously I had a look at the scouting videos and stuff like that. But I can't remember. I don't know if it was on Monday's show here or whether I heard it on a podcast or something. But Tim Vickery, who talks about South American players quite a bit, I think he said he's going to be a really good player, but that he's quite sort of, he needs to bulk up and sort of needs to toughen up a little bit because he's quite he's quite weak as well. As in, like, I don't know a better word to use, but do you know what I mean? He needs to get a little bit more physical and a little bit beefed up. But he said he'll be a real player. It's just that at the moment he needs to get more physical. So
HD's in the chat. So HD, if there's anything you can tell us about Hincapie, that would help us.
Yeah. So I before coming on, I took a look at his underlying stats through my channels. He defensively is better than Davies statistically. The weaknesses I see in his game is typically his progressive passing and progressive carry numbers. They're around about half of what Davies is doing. But again, some of that could be put down to Conte's system, allowing Davies to be better in terms of progressing the ball. I haven't seen much of him play, but from what I can glean from stats, he's playing in a big league, the German league. He does seem like a decent player. I think he's a bit far off what we need at the moment.
Does he play in a 3? Does he play in a 3 at the moment?
I have not watched Leverkusen. He is left-footed, though. I can
Yeah.
tell you that. He's left-footed, so I'm sure he could play on the left side of a 3.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't matter if he plays in a 3 at the moment, but...
But statistically, he looks all right defensively. He's much better than Pau Torres defensively. So I'd rather we get him than Pau Torres. But I don't know. I think we should be aiming a little bit higher. I hate to sound like Davo, but I think we should be aiming a little bit higher than him because he looks like a decent player, but it's going to be one for a couple years' time, 3-4 years' time. Not someone who's young who improves the team and who can get even better like Kulusevski. He looks like someone who comes in, plays a few games for us, doesn't get a lot of minutes. And I kind of think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I've gleaned from stats. So.
Right, there's 56 people watching. If you could hit the like button for us, that would be brilliant. This is one of those shows where I sit and I sort of listen and learn because I don't know enough about these people, but hopefully when I finish, like other people who are watching, learn a little bit along the way. Let's move positions. So the Jed Spence thing seems to be going on and on and on and on. A couple of people have put in the chat that possibly it is a smokescreen for other players. We talked briefly about him on Monday, then he's on holiday and whether that's had an impact. Brooke, we've not talked to you before about Jed Spence. What's your views on Jed Spence? What does he bring? We can't hear you now at all. Now, Brooke, are you muted? No, still can't hear you. Go back to your AirPods and we'll have muffled Brooke. Yeah. Oh, I can hear you then. No, no, can't hear you. Oh yeah, can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah. So tell us what you think about Spence.
Young, English, promising. I was kind of thinking like, on the left we've got Perisic and Sessegnon. One young, one experienced. I'm kind of thinking Jed Spence is, the young and can be benefited by having an experienced person next to him. And then I was looking through right back options. Who's available, who could come in. And I think promising is what I guess the first word that comes to mind. It could be really good. I just think.
Do you think he's got the right temperament for Spurs?
I wasn't. He's so young. With young players, I think they get really judged by the things that they put out on social media, like he was. I wasn't impressed with the photo, with the tweet.
Cigar.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed, but he's young, and I mean, that's just the shithousery you can expect. And obviously, that could change easily. So, exciting, young and exciting. I would like to see him here, but with Levy, it could be like the last minute of the transfer window. I hear he's in charge of the deal.
Yeah, Jurgen's put in the chat there that Spence has mentioned that he wants to come to Spurs. So does that kind of mean that there is this kind of bargaining, a bit like what we've had recently with Bergwijn, and it's a bit sort of tit for tat in terms of how much they want to pay for him, and that's maybe what's holding it up. James, what do you think about the Spence thing? Is it just a kind of cover up, or are things genuinely happening?
Well, it seems like Levy's handling it right. I don't know, he's got as many yellow cards as he does assists last season, and he's only ever done it in the Championship. Ryan Sessegnon had way better numbers than that in the Championship for Fulham, and he's still not really there. He will be, I think, probably, but he's still a few years off, right? At least 1 or 2. That's why we signed Perisic. No, I just don't rate Spence. Is it a smokescreen? Maybe. I mean, I've seen in the chat Hakimi over Spence. Yeah. I think everyone thinks that.
He's slightly more expensive, Hakimi, isn't he, than Spence?
Just a smidge. Yeah, I mean, that's like saying a Ferrari's a little bit more expensive than a Ford Focus.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to see. I mean, if Hakimi came in, I think I might even drink white wine on stream, and I hate white wine. That's how serious I am. That's how great it would be. So, you know what I mean. But no, I think it'll probably happen. I just don't rate him very much.
Because Matt, Spence isn't going to start Champions League matches in front of Doherty, is he? That surely isn't going to happen if he starts.
Well, I don't think it's a smokescreen. I think it will happen. I think they've been. I'm not saying that's what I want to happen. I mean, I'd take Hakimi all day. Hakimi's the dream, isn't he? But I did see the other day that the reason, obviously, probably a load of rubbish, but Levy's handling it because the agent of Jed Spence is a family friend. That's what I read, and I think it was from somebody who, when you see people who were talking about stuff like that, it was someone who it's not someone who I just look at it and go, someone else put a load of old crap. It was someone who I deemed to be quite sort of know what they're talking about. But I mean, obviously there's lots of players out there better than him, more high profile, and maybe could come in and be immediate starters. But I think this is going to happen. We could get somebody else. Because I mean, all we got to do really is improve on Doherty and Emerson, and that's not a really high bar, is it? To improve on those two. So, like I said, I think it's going to happen. I don't think he's probably Champions League level yet, but if he comes in, which I think he will, we've got to give the kid a chance, haven't we?
Yeah.
We can't just, we've got to sort of get behind it. We're all there going back. Conte, Paratici is doing this. We're going here. And then we can't go, oh, yeah, but don't sign Jed Spence. Yeah, get Perisic, brilliant. Basuma, brilliant. But then Jed Spence comes in, you're like, what are you done that for? We've got to sort of, if he's coming, we've got to try and get behind it. Is he the man to immediately take us forward? I don't know. But I think it's going to happen. So I'm just sort of like, look, if he comes in, let's hope Conte can get hold of him. Get some good, he's playing with better players, bit of decent coaching, and hopefully he will progress. I mean, I don't think when Liverpool signed Robertson, Liverpool fans were like, this is the bloke who's going to take us to the next level. This is the bloke who's going to play left back and win us the Champions League and the league and kick us on to sort of like Man City's level. I'm not saying Spence is as good as Robertson, but there's a chance he could be. But, my opinion of it is I think it's going to happen. So I'm just going to sort of let it play out. And hopefully we will sign somebody else who is more ready now. But I don't think we will. I think it will be him and Doherty.
Yeah, I mean, if you look through the right back options that are available over the next 2 years, people running out of contract over the next 2 to 3 years, I mean, I looked. There's not loads. I mean, REA is coming back on the market. Kyle Walker-Peters. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of good right wing back options. There's not.
I think Kyle Walker-Peters would be a better option than Jed Spence, maybe. But can't see that happening. But I think it's going to happen. So, but we're saying about Doherty. A lot of people are like, "Oh, but we've got Doherty." But I don't know how many games Doherty has played for Spurs. But I think he had about 5 good games over the period he's been with Spurs. So,
well, you could argue the same for Emerson, couldn't you? That once Conte kind of came in, there was huge improvements on those players.
And Emerson gets knocked a hell of a lot, but when we needed him to step up in those last few games where we had to keep winning, he played in those when Doherty got injured, and he obviously going forward not great, but he did all right. So I don't know. I just think if we're saying this like trust the process, a lot, we've got sort of. I think like I said, I think it will happen. So. If he comes in, let's just hope Conte can get a tune out of him.
People in the chat are mentioning João Felix, and I saw that on Twitter today. You'll have to help me here out, panel, or the chat. What position does João Felix play in? And
forward,
people are saying here, is he a forward? Okay. That Atletico played a huge fee on him, and they're a bit like us with Ndombele. They're going to move him on. They're going to take a bit of a hit on that, aren't they? What do we know anything about João Felix? Brooke, do you know anything about him?
That he was touted as the second coming when he was young, and it just really hasn't panned out for him over there. Simeone's ready to let him go. I think he was ready a long time ago to let him go, but I'm not a fan. No.
Yeah.
When he was younger, he was like the next best thing.
James, do you know anything about João Felix?
Yeah, he cost a ridiculous fee. It was like over 100 million when they signed him. His stat, right. My thing with Felix is when they signed him, I thought they must think this guy is like the next Suarez above level player, right? And he doesn't suit Simeone's system at all. And so, this is just a broader struggle of Atletico Madrid as they've transitioned away from this, team that has less quality, and they have the quality on the pitch. They've struggled to adapt from the kind of tough, defensive, hard-working football to a more expansive system. It's just something they've not been able to do very well. So I wonder how much of that has impacted Felix. I suppose it didn't impact Griezmann or Suarez or even Fernando Torres when he was there ages ago. You look at his numbers, his stats are better, but like not by a lot than Kulusevski. Like they attempt about a similar amount of passes. Kulusevski better pass completion. You look at Felix, he doesn't progress the ball a lot more. He completes like an extra progressive carrier game. Like they're pretty similar level of player from stats. Now, how much of that could be improved upon, I don't know. But are Atletico going to take like an 80 million loss on him? No. We'd have to pay 60, 70, 80 million. And that's when I start saying, this is getting a bit silly. Because this is a guy who, he looks decent-ish, but is he even better than Kulusevski? I can't say for certain. Maybe he could be. But like, that's a lot of money to gamble. And we're not Chelsea or Man City. We can't gamble huge amounts of money, right?
Yeah,
So,
and we said earlier didn't we, earlier in the week that we've risked that with Ndombele. So I think people are mentioning in the chat about Bastoni and people like that, which we might come to a bit later on, is that when we've spent a lot of money and it hasn't worked, we need to be really careful. So I'm in a sense reassured if we're taking a while to decide what's going on, because to make the right decision, right?
Sorry, is he the sort of player would Atletico sort of let you have him on loan for a season, similar you think we'd be able to get him, James, on loan from Madrid for a season and sort of like with an option to buy or something like that? Because I don't know where if he came as well, where would he fit it? Does he play off the left or could he play off the left and the right? Could he, could he take Kane's place if needs be? Could he play as that sort of like central striker? What sort of role would he fill for us?
The best way to describe him is he's the alley role almost, but he can play out wide. He's better out wide.
Yeah.
Kind of almost in that Eriksen alley role, kind of a combination of the two of them. So I wouldn't really play him up front. I mean, maybe, but not really. His underlying numbers aren't better than Eriksen's, and Eriksen is available on a free. The benefits Felix is he's 22. When there was first hype around him because he scored a hat-trick in the Europa League for Benfica, I watched it and I didn't really get it. Players have done that. One of the goals was a penalty. One of them was a bit of a fluke. He does look like a decent player, but 20 goals returned in 82 games, over 100 million. I don't know, man. Like, for a team that, not like the season that just gone, but the season before won the league, I'm a bit skeptical. Again, if we could get him for like 35, 40 million, I'd be like, yeah, why not, right? But he's not a particularly physical player. Is he, Gil? Again, I don't think he is, but there is the potential that he could end up struggling a little bit in quite a physical league. And before someone says David Silva, different player, different position, not applicable. Atleti on a team that just give players away for cheap. Like, we would have to pay a lot for them, right? Like, I can't see them selling him to us for a short amount. Yes, as my father says, eloquently.
That's what I was just thinking, because we don't really do deals with Atletico Madrid. I don't really remember there ever being a player really that we've kind of had a deal with. There's lots of jokes about cats and alley cats and stuff like this. Interestingly, that's reminded me, last week I told my Jack that we'd signed Basuma, and he went, "Oh no, that's not the person who kicked the cat, is it?" And I said, "No, wrong. That was wrong player." That's just reminded me. Right, okay. We mentioned a minute ago, we mentioned Doherty, and the Spurs announced yesterday that Skip, remember him, Tanganga, and Doherty are all apparently either fit or close to being fit and being back at Hotspur Way on the 27th of June, which, for some of us who've forgotten about Skip, it will feel like, new signings, having those three back. That's great news, isn't it, Brooke, having those three back?
Definitely. I'm really anxious to see if they can carry on their form from previously, because they were brilliant before. I'm really looking forward to seeing them back. Fingers crossed.
Because Tanganga had a few decent games, didn't he? I know he played well at City, and then he got sent off, didn't he, at Palace? And
he's really good defensively, in the back, but I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with him in a Conte wingback. So,
good start, that, Andrew. Well done. James, what do you think about those three all being fit?
Well, yeah, that's good, right? I mean, they need a pre-season. Tanganga, I don't know, too soon. Skip, brilliant player, future England captain. Shame he's not Welsh, but, he's a brilliant player. Actually, I think he's probably only a couple of years away from being England's best midfielder. Definitely going to play minutes for us. We have 4 very good Champions League quality midfielders in our team now. And we need him fit, because I think he's better than Højbjerg, actually. I think he's around there with Basuma and Benteke. And that's not to take away anything from Højbjerg. I think Højbjerg's a good player, but I think Skip has real potential. So, yeah, good he's back. Good he can go on pre-season. Good he can learn from Conte. I mean, Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte don't both say you're going to be a future star if you're rubbish, do they? So,
yeah, Matt, agree with that?
Yeah, fair play to all three of them. I don't know if they've been asked to come back in early or whether they've decided or whether they've asked to come back in. But fair play to them. Obviously they want to impress in their first full pre-season under Conte. Want to make an impression. I mean, probably Tanganga's the one who sort of needs to make more of an impression. Obviously, very good player. I just get the feeling with Skip, he's one of those players that once he sort of played for a manager, they'll love him. And And he's just going to be, no matter what he does or where he plays, he's just always going to be able to play at the level he's in. Like when we play Champions League, he'll be able to play Champions League football, Premier League, and he'll just fit in and do what he needs to do. He just strikes me as one of those players. He's sort of like got an old head on his shoulders, hasn't he? He's, Doherty obviously had quite a nasty injury. Probably wants to get back fit. I think I think Doherty's gonna. I think he'll stay. I think he'll be one of the right backs. So yeah, fair play to him for coming in and putting it in. That's what you want, isn't it? Shows the right attitude. Even if Tanganga's going to go out on loan, at least you know that he's up for it. You know, you don't want players who are going to assault. You want players who are going to come in and fight. And those three are obviously coming in and want to show that they can be part of the squad, which is good.
Yeah. Hi, Kerry. Kerry just put up there that, he's got the right attitude for Conte. I still remember when he came on against Ghent at Wembley. I think he was 17 then, and he looked about 25. But yeah, definitely there with the old head on kind of young shoulders. I'm looking forward to seeing possibly Doherty play in the right position as well, because he was kind of messed about in position, wasn't he, towards the end of the season? And seeing him playing in the right position, I think, don't get me wrong, we like to improve him, but what I've said before about having rotation, I think is really good. And while we're still talking about youngsters, somebody just put up there about Scarlett. I know I mentioned him and Divine earlier in the week. Scarlett did score twice tonight. First goal was a sort of in the cross into sort of penalty area. Took it with his left, hit it in with his right, and his second one was kind of like a deflection that kind of bounced up and sort of hit him on the chest and went in. But again, it looks like now England are going to be qualifying for the semi-finals in the under-19, so that's really nice to see. So yeah, it's we've said before. I think Scarlett's a confidence player, and it's so tricky for him at Spurs because he doesn't play a lot of minutes. So seeing him kind of flourish in the under-19 is going to be really nice.
It's another one like James has said, hasn't it, about Scarlett? I think Mourinho and Conte now have both said that this kid's a decent player. So there's something there with him as well, isn't there? So we need to get him some minutes, whether it's with us pre-season, then he goes out on loan. But I think he probably does need a loan. I'm not sure where level they'll think about sending him to, but he's obviously got something about him, hasn't he?
Yeah. Brooke, what do you make about Scarlett and Divine for that matter?
Yeah, when you guys were talking, I was thinking back to the Europa Conference League under Nuno, and I just remember thinking, like, this poor kid is just getting chucked out there in the wind, and I felt really bad for him. I'm like, this really is not good for his development. So I really feel like maybe he does need to go out to get some experience I don't know which league might be the best for him, but I do feel like he needs some proper game time, because I do think that he's going to be good, really good for England, for Spurs, and yeah, I think some really good time on the pitch with some better quality teammates. I'm excited to see what becomes of him.
That's quite a good point there, is that possibly this may be going on. We don't know that it may be not necessarily Scarlett. There might be other players in sort of like loan deal swaps, maybe Hill or Sarr. We don't know, do we? Those players that are kind of due back on loan, what's kind of going on in the background there with them. Yeah.
Sorry,
James.
Davo's just made me laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite a giggle.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? We were saying before about, if Hill returns, he needs to have minutes in the Premier League. But sort of whether he will or whether.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Rare agreement with Davo, like me.
Yeah.
If we see him as a part of our future, then we need to be seeing what he can do in the English leagues, don't we? More or less the Premier League, like he'd have been perfect. Norwich end up, but you could have sent him there. He'd probably fitted in there. He'd have got game time. Not sure who you would at the moment. I'm not sure if maybe because they play a bit of football, don't they? If Ericsson goes, could go in there. Frank could be pretty good for him, I think.
Yeah, we were talking there about young players doing well and about coming back early. Sessegnon has posted some videos, I think it was on his Instagram, wasn't it, of him doing sort of kind of like heavy, like weightlifting and kind of bursts of sort of kind of little like jogs and things. I know Davo will put in the chat now that he's trying to build his hamstrings. I've preempted him. But again, that's someone showing the right attitude, isn't it? Kind of, away on holiday. We talked the other day about Parrots doing the same thing. They've got their time off, but they're, using it the right way. I remember seeing lots of pictures this time last year of Delhi doing a similar sort of thing. Yeah. And I think with Sessegnon, it's that sort of idea that, he really wants to kind of get a run of games. He had a run of games towards the end of the season. I know there's whenever he plays, the Spurs fans get, really positive about wanting him to kind of do well. And I think, seeing players putting that kind of, say, legwork in then before they come back to training is obviously only going to bode well, isn't it, for Conte? Conte is going to want that sort of thing. James, what do you think about that with Sess and, the extra training?
Yeah, that's undoubtedly the correct attitude to have. And that's got to be something that's been instilled from not only the player, but I think also Conte and the mentality he's implementing around the club. I think one of our detriments in recent years has been too much of a lax attitude. And Antonio Conte won't have that. This is good that we have players who want to come back. They don't want to piss around in the sun and get drunk or whatever. They want to come back. They want to train. They want to work hard so they can have a chance of playing. And that's absolutely an attitude Conte will be delighted with. And end of the day, it's good because they're only helping themselves and increases their chance of getting in the team. Sessegnon, we saw in those runner games he had towards the end of the season, there is a player in there. There is definitely a player in there. We saw the player that came through for Fulham in the Championship. If he can really work hard and progress under Conte, I can definitely see him playing quite a lot of games for us next season. I get the feeling that Conte doesn't rate Reggie. So, I don't know, man. Like, maybe we'll sell Reggie and Sessegnon and Perisic are our starters for the next couple of seasons. Perisic teaches Sessegnon, and then, who knows, maybe in 2-3 years' time, Sessegnon is our starter, and maybe he's England's starter. I don't know, but I can see a path to that happening, and this attitude is the way to get there, right?
Yeah, totally. Matt, agree with all of that?
Yeah, I agree with everything James says. I really want Sessegnon to succeed. I think there is a player in there. I think Conte mentioned that he rates him and he thinks there's a player in there. I think Sessegnon's problem is I'm not sure he trusts his own. Well, he hasn't been trusting his own body from all the injuries he's had, and I just think he needs that bit of self-belief. A bit like when Bale was first with us, you sort of saw some glimpses and you knew there was a player in there. Then he came back. He had that brilliant end to the season where he had to come in. We sort of stumbled on him by chance, and then he came back the next season and he just physically bulked up and he just sort of like had lift off and he was fantastic. I'd love that. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Sessegnon, but when he scored against Bayern Munich, didn't he, in the Champions League away from home, and you picking up those positions, and because he can obviously score a goal. Because James, how many goals did he score for Fulham? He scored quite a few the one season, didn't he?
Oh,
and I don't think he played up front
2 seconds.
all the time. I think he had he scored quite a few goals for Fulham. So
I think when he went abroad as well, when he had that little bit of time abroad, I remember seeing goals of him in a blue shirt scoring. Yeah. So he scored when he was on loan as well.
And when he was at Fulham, I think he got Championship Player of the Season.
Yeah, he scored
Championship Player of the Season.
He scored 15 goals in the Championship season before Fulham got promoted in 2017-18, playing as a wing-back, right? Those are really good numbers, even for the Championship, right? Jed Spence has 2 goals compared to 15, 2 goals.
Yeah, I think there was he's been at us a couple of years now, but there was a hell of a lot of hype around him before we signed him, probably a year before we signed him. And then I think when he came up to the Premier League, I don't think he had, I think people were expecting a lot more from him, even though he was with Fulham, and I don't think that materialised. But there's a player in there, and if he is wing back's his position, obviously Conte, that's what he uses. And I think coming in, like you said, that is a great attitude. I think he'll get games, and I'm hoping he will take off like Bale did, and I think we'll have a real player there.
I think we were saying before, he's a confidence player, isn't he? So the more kind of people saying in the chat about running games, and you could really see his confidence. It was building, and it's provided he could stay fit.
Can I just respond to Dave for a second? Yeah, Fulham were terrible in the Premier League that season. No one played well for them.
Yeah.
Mitrovic, who scores a stupid amount of goals in the Championship, didn't score many goals in the Premier League. So that's not a fair assessment, I don't think. And he was still being picked, right? So he couldn't have been that terrible in comparison to the rest of his team. And he's been good for us now. He was still a young lad. I think he was only like 19, 18 when he was playing in those games. So
yeah,
but
he's a young lad now.
Exactly. He's only like 22 now, I think.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying that he's going to be like Bale. I'm not saying he's going to do this and that. I'm hoping he is, because I think there is a player in there. So
if he can stay fit.
Yeah, let's keep him fit. And I think it's confidence in his body and confidence of just playing games and doing what the manager wants him to do.
Yeah, great. Okay, so before we move on to possible outs, the Eriksen rumours seem to have kind of died down. We talked about this, but it's reminded me with Matt's beautiful shirt behind his head, that kind of dark away kit with the yellow trim was just one of those beautiful kits. Brooke, where do you stand on the whole kind of Eriksen thing? Because we follow each other on Twitter, and I think you were a bit like me. You were getting very excited.
Yeah.
And then, so where do you stand on all that?
I'm pretty gullible, I believe what I'm told. No. Oh man, it's so nostalgic. It's so emotional. I really, and I'll be a bit honest and optimistic that I think it could still happen. I'm not really deterred by the comments that have been made recently about Spurs not being in contact for 2 weeks. I'm like, we don't really know what that means. And it might be my wishful thinking, but it might also be like maybe the deal's done and they don't really need to think about it now because we do have other things that we actually need. I would love it. And I still believe he's coming back.
I think you're like me. Until you hear that he's definitely going somewhere else or he's actually come out and said he's not going. I did see someone put in the chat before that, and I mentioned this, I think, a week or so ago, that you do sort of think if it was going to happen, we'd have probably heard by now from Eriksen himself. But we've said before, the whole kind of Man United thing, if that was it, it was money. And we keep, to be fair to the people who tweeted about it on Sunday, they're sort of saying, and well, almost every comment that comes out seems to kind of contradict itself. And even the people who are reporting it are then contradicting themselves, saying he does want to stay in London, he doesn't want to stay in London, he wants to play Champions League, he doesn't want to play in Champions League. It's almost like nobody really knows. So, yeah.
I remember at the very beginning, he said he would make a decision after his holidays. And as far as I know, he's still on holiday. So I'm not willing to close the door, and I still believe.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's talk about outs. So today, I said before, I've literally been in a cupboard all day long. And I first kind of went on my phone about 10 to 7, I think it was, and people were putting goodbye Bergwijn kind of pictures. So I kind of intimated from that things were sort of almost done. Matt, what you know a bit more about this than me? Where are we up to with Bergwijn?
Well, I've not got any special information. It's just obviously before I come on the show, checking through my Twitter feed and other news outlets and stuff, and it sort of said that they think the deal's been agreed between. I think this is coming out of the Athletic. Can't remember the reporter who I think it might have been Eccleshare, but they're basically saying the deal between the two clubs has been agreed. I think it was €25 million. It's just like the finer points that need to be ironed out, but it's probably going to happen July the 1st or after. Then at the bottom, they basically said that they think Spurs want to get another forward in before they sell Bergwijn. But this has just been a matter of time, hasn't it, really? I mean, I like Bergwijn, but I think the writing's been on the wall now for a while. He's come out talking about wanting to leave, and I think it's just, like I said, I just think it's a matter of time. I think, like when we were talking about Eriksen, I do think a lot of stuff isn't happening, because I do think certain players still are on, away, still sort of like on their holidays and stuff like that. So I think probably more will happen in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, that's the Bergwijn thing, and I think it's something we're all expecting, isn't it? And we've just obviously got to replace him. It's a shame, really, because I think Bergwijn's a decent. I'd rather keep Bergwijn personally, and I'd rather let Lucas go. I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, it's just waiting for it to happen, isn't it? That's what everyone's doing. We just keep saying the same old thing. It'd be best for everyone when we can just sort of like move on from it, really.
Brooke, what are your views on Bergwijn? Because we've not had you kind of talk about him. Obviously he's the legend, and a lot of people saying that we're in the Champions League final. That kind of, we're in the Champions League because of his comeback goals at Leicester, and that's a big deal, and that kind of was a turning point in maybe kind of the attitude of the team. But he doesn't get the minutes. Where do you sort of stand on Bergwijn?
He's given us great moments. I view him kind of like. No, I don't want to say that. I won't say that. But we've had great moments. They just haven't been as many great moments with him as we would have liked. I think he's also mentally wise. I think he takes things very personally. I think he gets really upset about things, as opposed to, like, if you look at other people who have had issues in the team, who haven't got the minutes, who really knuckled down, and especially with the praise that Doherty got when he was getting slated week in, week out. And Conte said he never even showed that he was upset. He just got on with the job. And I don't think that's Bergwijn. I don't know him personally. But every time you see him after a game when he's had 2-3 minutes, he just seems very upset. And I think maybe that's part of it, where the mentality is not there, and more of the moments aren't there. And I think he's a good guy. You want the best for him, so you're happy that he gets to move, and he can go be. I think he's going to do well there, so I'm very happy for him.
He just wants to play, doesn't he? He's a young guy, just wants to play, and he hasn't been. I don't really think Conte's he hasn't given him a lot of opportunities. He hasn't had much. He comes on sort of like in the late 80s, 87th, 86th minute. He hasn't had a lot of football. He's a young guy, and he just wants to play football. So, his attitude. I don't know what his attitude's like. None of us know, do we? I mean, he hasn't looked happy, but he ain't going to be, is he? He's not playing.
No.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for everyone involved, really. We're making some money on him. He seems happy to be going there. I think it's...
Bergwijn's a weird one, because he's really more of a striker in terms of his output than a winger. Because he actually takes more shots per 90 than Son. He takes around 3, Son takes around 2.57. That's actually pretty impressive for a winger, right? Like, he's outdoing Son. The only reason Son scores so many goals is because virtually all his shots go in. Like, we, in terms of expected goals, massively overperform because we have two very clinical players. Bergwijn shoots a lot, but he doesn't do enough in terms of progressive carrying, progressive passes, expected assists, all the other jazz. I don't know, right? Because, like, he needs to leave. But I remember reading in January that we had turned down 25 million euros. So I don't know if this is just a case of Conte now saying, do you know what? Don't need him. Get rid of him. Paratici. Like, all right, he's rung up Ajax.
And get me someone else.
Yeah, I don't know if he was trying to take the months to take a second look at him, but did he play in that time? I mean, once against Newcastle he came on, right? How many games did he play in that period? Not very many.
Do you think we needed him, James? Because we didn't get Kulusevski till late, did we? So we probably didn't want to let Bergwijn go until we got someone in. Kulusevski came in a bit late. I mean, I saw. Can you remember they said that they didn't want to let him go after he scored the 2 goals against Leicester because it would have been a PR disaster. I can't believe Conte. Yeah. If Conte would have wanted him out, and they'd have said, "Oh, PR disaster," I think he'd have gone like, "Oh, I don't care. Get me someone else." Maybe it was because Kulu didn't come in till late, and then Ajax couldn't stump up the money, because it looks like that's happening now because they've sold Haller, haven't they? So they've got the money now, because up until now they've sort of been quibbling and trying to get a lower fee. So maybe that's the reason it's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if we weren't sure about getting Bergwijn in based on the Adama snub, then that's reasonable, right? That's a good point. I haven't actually thought of that. Yeah, it would look strange that if he came on, scored 2 goals in the next day, it's like, bye, Bergwijn, thanks for everything.
Yeah.
It'd be like if we sold Lucas to somewhere after the Champions League. It'd be like, hang on a minute. I can't imagine Conte's the most conscious of PR, but I'm sure the goals made him go, all right, maybe there's a player in this lad.
Yeah.
We'll take a second look at him. Do you know what I mean?
He scored a couple of goals after that as well, didn't he? Brought him on up front. He scored a couple of goals after that. He scored against Newcastle. But like I said, it's a shame. It's a strange one because he's a decent player, but it's just obviously Conte doesn't really fancy him, does he?
No.
Yeah, he doesn't, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to know.
And why do the Netherlands get more out of him than we seem to? I know he plays more minutes.
They play
that.
There's
maybe that as well. Yeah. But I still remember that game when Kulusevski was ill and Mora played instead of Bergwijn. And there were a few times when he brought Mora on earlier than he brought Bergwijn on. And you just keep thinking, why is that? If Bergwijn is the better player.
All the time, didn't he? He used to do that all the time, bring Lucas on before Bergwijn. So he must be sat there thinking, what chance have I got here?
Yeah.
Pointless.
Yeah. Odd. Okay, right. Another out that we were kind of when I did turn the TV on when I got home, I turned Sky Sports on. They were saying that apparently Lampard has given the go ahead now for Winks to go to Everton, and Paul O'Keefe has then kind of said it's advanced and that's nearly a done deal. And someone put a very good comment actually on Twitter to say, and it's similar with Bergwijn really. Let's be nice about Winks when Winks goes and when Bergwijn goes. They're certainly Winks. He's a decent guy. He's a nice guy. He's been at Spurs a long time. He doesn't deserve, the sort of stuff that's gonna, just say thank you very much, good luck, off you go, kind of thing. So hopefully that's what he gets because he's been there a long time. It's a bit like Dele really. The kind of downfall is he's not good enough for us anymore. But hope he's enjoyed his time and good luck, sort of thing. Brooke, what do we think about Winks? It's time for him to go, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, it's time for him to go. Wish it was under better circumstances, but as a Spurs boy, you want him to go. You want him to do well. You want him to play. So I won't be slagging him off on his way out. I remember the his first goal for. He had such good moments, and then the decline just kind of happens. And so you just want the best for him and hope all goes well for him.
And James, Everton's the right club for him, yeah?
Is Frank Lampard secretly a Spurs fan or something? Because he took Dele off us, now he's taking Winks off us. And in fairness, what you said has made me reconsider lighting a cigar on stream when he eventually leaves. Maybe I won't do that. It's a funny one because he was a proper player when he first came through for us. He did a lot of progressive passing. And people were talking about him being like the future England, the future Lampard for England. And it just never transpired. It's obviously a confidence thing, right? So maybe he can fix that confidence. But we said that about Ali, right? And that hasn't happened at Everton so far. So maybe it's not the right team for him. I honestly think Brentford or Leeds would be better for him, if I'm honest. A team that actually presses a lot and has a manager who kind of seems to know what they're doing. I don't know. He's not good enough for Spurs, so... I wish him well, but I don't really care where he goes. So simple.
Yeah. And I think, when Eriksen had that interview, didn't he, with Sky, which was slightly awkward when Kelly Dalglish asked him about being after the Brentford game to Eriksen, didn't she? She said, "Oh, you're still a Spurs fan," and he said something along the lines of, "Everyone that leaves stays a Spurs fan." And then Defoe's next to her going, "Yeah," and then Jamie Redknapp's a bit sort of like, "Yeah." But the vast majority of players who leave Spurs do still have an affinity for Spurs, and I think that's down to the fans and how we are with the players. And I think as I said, Winks is not right for Spurs now. It's time for him to move on. It's the right time for him. Again, we're still in 22nd of June, and that's one of the players that maybe is sorted, and that could have rambled on all summer, couldn't it?
We've moved on, haven't we, as a club? And when you start progressing, people get left behind. That's just the nature of football, isn't it? And as you start getting better and getting higher up the league, the room for sentiment disappears and it becomes more about winning and competing. And unfortunately, that is just how it is. And he's not at the same level we are. We've moved on and he hasn't. He's just stagnated. He's flatlined. Like I see somebody put that he did have a nasty injury. And I think Pochettino said that he'd be playing in pain for the rest of his career. You know, and I do feel sorry for him. And I don't think he's ever given anything but his best for us. But his best isn't good enough anymore. So look, go off, play some football. Hopefully, he'll have a decent Premiership career. Not against us, but you know, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Toodle pip.
Yeah, I think toodle pip. Right. Okay. So, if you can hit the like for us, please. We've got 124 people watching. That'd be great. Okay. Now, today, Kane has once again for the third season running announced that he's going to sponsor the Leyton Orient kits. Which, if we didn't think he was a classy guy already, think so. I asked the panel before we went live if they've seen the video or the picture of him, because I genuinely thought that it was Kane from like 6, 7, 8 years ago, because he was beardless and I didn't even realise that it was a recent picture. Some people that I was seeing in the comment were saying that Kane looked older without having a beard. I definitely thought he looked younger. I still like the kind of spiky hair that he has going on. But yeah, you know, what a great thing to do for Leyton Orient. I think they announced, didn't they, that we're playing not necessarily the best 11, but there's going to be a friendly against Leyton Orient again for the Just in Edinburgh charity. So that's great. But yeah, you know, great thing there for Leyton Orient. James, agree with that? That's, you know, it's a great thing to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely gesture, and it's nice to see him doing it. Do you know, I actually have to say, it's nice to see a top professional football player who isn't in the tabloids for doing X, Y, Z constantly. It's nice to see someone who just, you know, takes his life seriously. You know, you don't hear bad stories about Harry Kane, do you? You never see anything. Yeah. Seems like he's a decent bloke who ended up being quite good at football, and he's just living aside from football, a pretty ordinary life, and he's helping out a club he cares about. It's quite nice to see, actually. It's heartwarming, even.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, super. Cool. Okay, and it was announced this week that Arsenal's All or Nothing Amazon Prime show is going to be out in August. It's out the day before my birthday, so I was like, woohoo! Me and Jack might get some popcorn. I don't think I'm going to watch all the episodes, though. I think I'll probably just watch the last 2 and see, hopefully, the huge meltdown that they don't edit out. Yeah, and in the chat, is everyone in the chat going to be watching that as well, just for a little bit of a laugh? I think it will be hugely funny. Yeah, Matt, what do you think about that?
Yeah, pardon my French, but I'd rather shit my hands in clap than watch that. I've got no interest in watching anything. I don't care about Arsenal. I genuinely do not care what they do. I've seen us beat them at the end of this, and that's all I care about. I'm genuinely not interested. I mean, I know a lot of people might take some pleasure out of watching them like implode towards the end of the season, but
I think it's only because
I'd probably rather go and watch Love Island. But can you imagine having that as a choice?
I think for me, it's just because obviously the North London derby game is in there, isn't it? And then there's the Newcastle game. I'm not interested in. absolutely the amount of pictures I've seen of their new guy that they've signed today, and lots of pictures of people with long necks. I've seen pictures of ET 100 times over. I'm not genuinely interested, but like we alluded to earlier in the week, they've imploded and it's continuing this summer, and they seem to be linked with everybody that we're linked with. And then when these nobodies then sign for Arsenal, it's always the same. Oh, but I heard there was a North London team in for me and I was hoping it was Arsenal, not Tottenham. And you're like, really? That you're just going to regurgitate that again? Because they are just nothing. And that's why that show is going to be hilarious, because they have achieved nothing.
Not interested in them. Not interested.
No. Yeah.
But everyone else, please, if you want to watch it and enjoy it, but not for me.
Yeah, Ross is like me. Ross's birthday's near mine, so Dave was asking about when's my birthday. My birthday's the 3rd of August. I think Ross's is the 1st of August, if my memory serves me. So we're all going to be sort of like watching those last 2 and having. But yeah, other than that, we're not interested in what they're up to. And you know, hopefully it continues that they're, we are miles away from Arsenal now. The difference in the last sort of 6 months is huge. It's a chasm, isn't it, between us?
Let's continue to have St. Arseholes Day every year when we finish above them.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, okay. I think we'll leave it there. It's, 10:15? Before we go, if you could sign in and hit the like for us and subscribe. And thank you everybody in the chat that's kind of joined along and commented and given us things to chat about, and that's brilliant. We've got the usual shows on Friday and we've got Seb's show on Sunday. But yeah, so thanks very much to my panel. James, thanks again for being here and not being too drunk to press all the buttons, because for those of you who don't know, I seem to be the only one. Actually, Matt, you're not drinking, are you? I'm not drinking.
No.
James is, getting straight in and drinking.
Crikey.
But yeah, thanks, James.
Oh, thanks for having me on as ever. It's lovely to be on with you lovely people to talk about Spurs. And it's onwards and upwards, right? I feel optimistic about Spurs. Leave a like, everybody. Subscribe if you want to hear more of me and other people. There are better people on the channel than me. It's mostly better than me. I'm the worst. So, more to come if this is your first stream of seeing us. But thanks for having me on. Been lovely.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Great chatting once again. You've definitely been, revising and building up your stats today over the last week. It's really great because you're very natural at this now.
I am trying to get better. I love it. I love being on here. I love talking about Spurs. Same as James. I'm confident. I'm positive. I'm trying to be positive about everything we do. I think we can go into the new season. I think we can. I'm looking at us as if, remember when Liverpool sort of finished 4th on around the same points as we did, and they made 3 or 4 good signings. Then next year they pushed on. I'm fingers crossed. I'm hoping we can do that. But I think whatever happens, I'm positive we're going to have a good season. So come on, you Spurs.
It just feels so much different, doesn't it, than in the past? Because normally we're not talking about anybody and nothing's going on and we've got no one. And, like we said, we're still so early in the window and we've got things that are happening and, it just feels really hopeful. Dave's still talking about the 150 million. We haven't started using it yet. It's there.
No.
We haven't started using it.
Chill out, Dave.
And thanks again, Brooke. I think we got through the kind of slightly odd sound issues, didn't we? We can hear you. It's just a bit muffly. But yeah, great to have you on again.
I lost my good earphones, and now I have these janky $12 Amazon
DH gate numbers.
Right? You know what I'm saying? So it's great. I love the cheese room. I'm a cheesehead, so I love being on here. Love the show. Love the podcast, listen to everything. So thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Great having you on. Brilliant. Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So hold on. Let me find the buttons. I've got to find the buttons. Make sure I do the buttons. The buttons. I've got the buttons. Right. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.